Welcome to edition 63 of All Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Just before we start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We do this podcast because we have mutual interest in serial killers. As long as we are doing this podcast, it stops us from writing to them in prison.
Way
different little tone there.
Yeah,
bit of fun.
It makes it a bit of fun.
Bit of fun.
Something for the dads.
Oh, absolutely. Nice bit of fun.
And this has ended up being, it's going to be a two-parter, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's an awful
more
lot.
than we anticipated, really.
Yeah, you thought this would be a nice quick one, didn't you?
I did, yeah. But there's a lot going on.
Yeah. So we are doing the Boston Strangler.
Albert DeSalvo.
Great name, Albert DeSalvo.
Is a good name. And
sounds like a Bugsy Malone character.
Very much so. A lot of the names in this actually sound gangstery. Is that a...
It's not racist, I don't think.
It's not a word, is it? Gangstery?
Gangstery, I reckon.
Dunno.
Actually, I think it might be racist because I think if people nowadays would say gangstery, it would be the kind of person who actually just means black, but doesn't think that you can say black.
Well, it's weird, when I think of gangsters, I genuinely always think of like
Al Capone,
Bugsy Malone, and stuff like that. I don't ever think of anything other. It's to me that's the real spirit of gang warfare.
Oh,
Like
spud guns.
Yeah, those guns and the hats and the cigars and the big suits.
Real overlap in my interests here, Bugsy Malone and...
I've never seen Bugsy Malone.
Here's a weird thing I've just remembered. Oh, fucking hell. Right, we've got to stay on track. So I'm fed up of women whinging that they can't follow what's going on because we're talking about stuff.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's tough shit. That's what we do. If you're not happy with us talking about around the subject, go and read a book. No, I'm sorry. I get tired of it. Your free content, you moan about it. There's not adverts on this. There's not a single advert do we have on this. There's none of that. Oh, yeah, well, Casper mattress, you want to get one of those? None of that.
I would happily take money from Casper mattress. It sounds like a very good mattress.
I would take a mattress, actually.
Yeah, I fucking love a new mattress.
I have a very uncomfortable bed, to be fair, but...
Well, you're on my bed right now, and like it's Paula Yates.
I think this is alright.
Are you kidding me?
Like...
My boyfriend describes this as a yoga mat with a puffer jacket on top. It's the worst mattress I've ever bought, and then my brother bought a mattress topper, and it's just I wake up and it feels like I've been in a car accident.
I think it's okay. I think it's good.
Awful.
So
yeah, Bugsy Malone. Really quickly, I was going to tell you, I was in a production of Bugsy Malone. When I see now, I'm worrying about myself, so I'm talking too much. Bugsy Malone in school, and I remember so we were doing it in like a 200 capacity theatre. My friend Rhiannon, now a Guardian journalist, how the mighty have risen to the top, was on stage as one of the gangsters, and she had black shoes that she borrowed from her mum. She just grabbed them on the way out, and for some reason they were black strappy shoes, but they were slightly odd. So one had like like diagonal straps, and the other one had like slightly less diagonal straps. Anyway, it was this thing of like, you can't notice. Like, I think she'd been wearing them for ages before she was like, oh shit, these are odd. Anyway, our friend Sam, who's a teacher, I think listens to this, the first thing he said when he saw the show is he came backstage and he went, were you wearing odd shoes for it? And it's like, how the fuck have you zoned in on that 200 seats away when there's like 80 people on the stage all singing a song, and he's zoned in on a pair of odd shoes that are incredibly similar. It's like he's playing, that party game when you put a blanket down, you're like, what have I moved? With a tray with stuff in it. You're like, pair of scissors? There was never any scissors. Anyway.
God, what a thing to hone in on, like.
Yeah.
I might tell a story about when my mum went to work in odd shoes, but actual different shoes, not like
a trainer and a heel.
It was one was a flat sandal, and one had a slight heel, and they were
Brilliant.
just totally different styles, totally different colours. Didn't notice until she was getting in the car after lunch, and she was like, "Why are my feet? Oh, I've got completely different shoes."
Oh God, how'd you even do that? That's
no idea. Very strange. Albert DeSalvo, though.
Albert DeSalvo, also known as the Measuring Man for a set of crimes we'll talk about later. The Boston Strangler is what he's most famous for, and also known as the Green Man.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the festival that happens in Brecon, which I did this year for the first time.
Or the Green Lantern.
No, yeah, please don't confuse those.
Now, he was born on the 3rd of September, 1931.
In a few days' time.
Virgo. He was one of, same as me, I hate my birthday, that's coming up soon.
Why do you hate it?
because I get very, very depressed around it, and I can't put my finger on it. I just don't.
Is it because you're getting older and you're hurtling towards death?
No, that's a relief, if anything. If I could speed that bit of life up, that'd be great. If I could just fast forward to my deathbed now.
Here's why I get sad about birthdays, is because historically I've always wanted someone to grand gesture my birthday, and present company excluded. That means you, but I actually mean my partner now. My birthday has been a overwhelming letdown, where I've been given like a card being like, oh, sorry, spent that money on something else.
Oh, sorry.
Can you take me out to dinner, please?
I've only known about this for a year.
Yeah, exactly.
And I haven't prepared anything.
Yeah, could have saved £1 a day and bought like an amazing present. So my birthday, I do this really bad thing where I go, with anything, birthday, Christmas, anything, I'm like, what would I get me that would be the best thing ever? So at the moment, I'm like, a puppy for Christmas. So anything less than a puppy is a massive disappointment, and I can't hide it on my face, which is why I don't open presents in front of people.
I don't think. In fact, in Chinese culture, it's considered bad manners to open a present in
great.
front of somebody, and I think that's like.
I'll say that then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just do that thing where I'm like, my birthday's gonna be, and so I get really sad about my birthday that it's gonna be a letdown. The last few birthdays have been amazing because like, my partner knows how funny I am, but like it's always just like you just want something huge and exciting.
I don't know. I think the past few years I've had awful birthdays, and I think what it is, because I think there comes a time in your life where you don't really get presents anymore. And not that I want presents, but now it's just like a firm handshake on your birthday. It's like, have a nice day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
I'm quite spoilt. My big brothers still get me stuff.
Oh,
It's my
really?
parents I have to negotiate with. I'm like, am I going to get anything for my birthday this year? Well, what do you bloody want? Well, you could have asked me that at any point. It's now a week after my birthday, so I reckon you could have had this conversation before.
Yeah, I think I just do get a bit depressed about it. Maybe it was better this year, who knows. But Albert DeSalvo, wonder if he ever enjoyed his birthday.
He was one of 6, so probably not.
No.
It'd be the kind of thing where, do you know those families where the kids are spoilt, so if it's someone's birthday, all the others have to get a present as well?
Oh, God.
So they don't get jealous.
Oh.
Kick him in the head. Well, speaking of, he had quite a violent alcoholic father.
Yeah, Frank DeSalvo, great name. His mum was called Charlotte. He was, obviously, I mean, there's a bit of serial killer bingo going on here, to be fair. Violent alcoholic father. He used to bring sex workers back to the house and have sex with them in front of the children.
Fucking weird.
There was several incidents of violence, but these particularly awful ones against Charlotte. He broke all her teeth at one point. Oh, God. And then in front of the children, broke all of her fingers by bending them back.
That's so
My
dark.
God, it's awful.
His dad also sold him and 2 of his sisters to a farmer for $9. Like, sold them, be like, yeah, have them as workers. So $9 he bought 3 children for.
God.
I'd sort of question the judgment of a farmer who buys children.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, no one in this scenario.
There's no heroes.
No. Fucking hell, it's so insane, isn't it?
By adults, there's more work in them.
Yeah, but not easy to control, are they?
True.
There was his brother Richard saw his father pick Albert up by the neck and shake him on one occasion, and it was after that incident that Charlotte was like, I'm going to divorce this man. And as soon as they were divorced, never saw Frank again.
That's so
Off he was going.
Well, good
He's
in a
gone.
way. He's not going to suddenly... There's no story of redemption with Frank, is there?
No.
He's not going to suddenly become Dad of the Year.
Absolutely not. Now, go on.
No.
No, go on.
Well, I'm worried about talking now, aren't I? But... you know what I always find fascinating? When you have a dad who was shit, who then with grandkids is amazing. I hear about this a lot, and I see it with some people who are closer to me.
So, my dad, who I love very much, he's a bit like that.
Really?
Yeah, he's very,
But maybe he's like working it out while he, like, because you can, just some men aren't ready sometimes, are they? Or they're a bit selfish when they're younger, and then they mellow out in an older age, and they're like, oh fuck, I've got another go at this.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be like that. I feel like my dad, I think maybe because I feel like he was constantly working to, to make ends meet and stuff like that,
Yeah.
as my mum was as well. And I don't know, he's not really the most demonstrative of people. He's not emotional. It's like, he cares because he does things in a different way. Like, to him, coming to pick me up from somewhere is, no matter how much he moans about it, is him showing his affection and stuff like that. He's not a huggy, kissy dad. But yeah, he's... Sometimes me and my sister are a bit like, why is he kinder to these lot?
But yeah, he's also probably got the time and money to be the kind of person that he wants to be.
That is true.
Because I see it with someone I know, their dad was a fucking piece of shit dad. But it's like, the grandkids are like, oh my God, he's the best. And they're like, he's a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Very strange.
Anyway, so another tick.
Now I've slagged off my father.
No, I don't think you have. I think it's a common thing where...
Yeah, I think it's...
the guys are working out, and you're right, probably busting their asses off trying to keep... That's their way of showing how much I love you. It's like, I'm doing this job I hate for fucking 80 hours a week for piss all money.
For you little shit.
Yeah, only for you to be like, other dads come to sports day.
Why did I never go to soft play?
So he go on.
Age 12, he had a lot of odd jobs after school. So he'd deliver flowers, he'd shine shoes. He was very generous by all accounts, Albert. He used to give money to his siblings and to his mum.
That's good of him.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. But age 12, in 1943, is when he got his first criminal record. Is that what we say?
Yeah.
His first offence. It was for the assault and battery of a paperboy, of which he stole $2.08 from. I mean, it's not funny, but...
But it is also like, it's a 12-year-old as well, so it's a scrap where he steals.
Yeah. So then he stole $24 worth of jewellery, and he was sent to reform school for 2 years. When he came out, he just cracks on, really. He was very obsessed with sort of sex. Like, his neighbours were a bit strange, and they used to bring women back all the time and have loud sex with them. So he kind of used to listen into that. And then he starts putting cats and dogs in crates and watch them scratch themselves to death.
What?
I know, it's a bit of a leap.
Well, I don't understand how you scratch yourself to death.
Well, if you put a dog and a cat in a little...
Oh, fuck, so they fight.
So they fight, yeah.
God, that's awful.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I got woken up this morning, speaking of awful and hearing neighbours, by a almighty row on the street at about 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, I fucking hate you! Just screaming, because normally it's our neighbours, so we had that yesterday, which was like, I fucking hate you! And there was a really funny one where he walked in, obviously hammered dad, and went, I've quit smoking! Which is the only positive thing we've heard through the walls. That it feels like their house is completely empty except for one cupboard door they continuously slam. And then this morning it was like, fucking come back here, like screaming down the street, and it's like, I'm fucking done with you, like all this like awful. And then someone came out, made that fatal mistake of coming out and going, can you keep it down please, we've got kids, and be like, fuck you, get back in your fucking house, all that stuff.
Fuck me.
It's a real spicy street.
Well, it's funny, now I don't know if they can hear this, there is a lot of there's a really eerie sounding wind.
They can definitely hear that.
That is... Ooh. That's like we put a BBC sound effects album on.
Yeah. It's like an M.R. James.
There's gonna be, yeah.
Shall I put this down here? Will that make it easier?
I think that'll be okay. Think it'll be okay?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it away from that horrible wind.
God, I like it. I do love it. I like that sound. I'd love to be in bed, like, listening to that. And as soon as it came, it went. God. What? So, I think... So, this... when you have, like, a change in the season and things... happen. So I think we're in one of these, without sounding like a hippie, in one of these weird cycles now where the season is changing and people start getting in touch. Like, you hear of people you've not heard of for a long time, or something changes. And you saying about arguments, I've seen so many arguments recently, like in the street. There was a massive one in the street outside my house the other day, and a bloke and a woman proper screaming at each other, and people were intervening and stuff like that. I don't know, I think it's that change in the season.
Really?
Yeah, I'm convinced.
It's like that, when people are like, oh, Mercury's in retrograde and blah, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
I'm convinced when it starts to get to the end of summer and then you go into autumn, there's always a weird thing. You'll hear of people you've not heard of for ages, or there was like several bits of news you get and you're like, oh, right, there are things that are going to change. I don't know, I'm a bit of a hippie about stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there's something in that. You'll go through spates where everyone breaks up and then everyone gets engaged and
it's weird.
There's
isn't
loads of turmoil where you're like, oh, everyone's life is in a fucking mess.
it?
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very strange. I think I could easily become quite.
What, hippy dippy?
Yeah, I think so. Getting at crystals and stuff like that.
Really?
I think I could very
I think
easily.
the people who like them swear by them.
And I'd love to wear those like pants that have elephants on. Like the.
My agent's got like a fine line in that because she did a gap year and stuff like that.
Oh really?
Yeah, so she got loads of that shit knocking around, which you wouldn't expect from her.
No, I wouldn't actually.
Yeah, touch of the hippies about her.
Oh yeah.
An elephant print yoga pant.
Yeah, I genuinely could really. I think I probably will.
I think if I got some of those, I would expand out into them, and I'd have to be cut out of them.
I think what will happen is probably the next 8 months I'll probably go vegetarian, and then that's what's going to happen.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, and then
you'll be living on a canal boat before you know it.
Absolutely. Anyway,
Joins the army.
yes, he joins the army.
So then he goes to Germany with the army. Then he gets sent back to New Jersey in Fort Dix, DIX, which I think we've spoken about before.
Yeah.
I can't remember who.
I think it's it's ringing a bell.
It's not Charles Ung, is it?
Oh God, who was it?
But there was a serial killer who was placed there. Earl J. Richmond Jr. was also placed there. But there's definitely been other serial killers who've knocked around in Fort Dix.
Yeah,
It's not a euphemism.
When he was in Germany though, he did meet a woman called Irmgard Beck, and they met at a dance. She was German. They got together, and they actually got married, and they had a daughter. Now, during the marriage, he was a bit of a handful, shall we say. He was obsessed with sex and demanded sex several times a day. He also, if he didn't get it, he used to masturbate several times a day and used to leave semen on the towels.
Yeah, all
Have
the
a designated towel if you're going to be
designated
like that.
towel.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
If you're really going to have to do that.
Surely you must have a zinc deficiency. Do you think stuff like that when it's like a really heightened sex drive, when it's like, when you're like really like feral with it, do you think that that's a chemical imbalance or something wrong with your brain?
I think it's got to be
Hormonal.
some kind of imbalance, hasn't it? It's not. It can't be normal to want to be like that all the time.
Yeah. To not be safe to touch any towel in the house.
Ugh.
Horrible.
He did say as well that he used to have a burning feeling in his abdomen that meant he needed sexual release.
Try eating something.
Yeah, you might.
Sometimes I think I'm tired and then I have a glass of water and I'm fine.
Maybe you just need a big poo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that burning feeling in your abdomen.
I know it's really awful. Sometimes, when people are really depressed and like going on and on and on about it, sometimes I just think maybe that's what's wrong with you. Maybe.
What, you need a big shit? Well, I'm glad you're not a medical professional. So that's dangerous
And
advice.
I speak as somebody who has suffered from depression, so don't start. I'm going to say writing in. Don't start writing in. So they moved to America, as you said, and he was charged with something. He was charged with a horrible crime, carnal abuse of a child.
Which means fucking a kid, right?
Yeah.
So it's a 9-year-old girl.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, while this gets taken to court, because it's to do with the army, so they have their own court.
Yeah.
But while the case is being sort of put together, the mum changes her mind and backs down.
Yeah, she says that it would be too much, too traumatic for the child to have to go through with it. Kind of get why people do that sometimes.
Totally,
but,
yeah.
You know, must be so difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, awful, because you're like, this child's been through enough.
Yeah.
But then you're like, oh God, well, what else are they going to do? But, like, respect the decision either way, I guess, because it's... Yeah, you just do what's best by your kid. So in 1956, he was given... So the case was dropped, but he was given an honourable discharge. So it's like, hey, we know that you, like, molested a 9-year-old... Well, raped a 9-year-old girl, but we're going to let you off with... Like, the word honourable in there feels wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, yeah, you're right. So he's living in New Jersey at this point, and then he moves to Boston.
Yes.
And he's 25 at this point. Apparently he was a devoted husband and father. Didn't really go out with his friends and gave all his wages to his wife.
Yeah, so he gets arrested after he's been in Boston for a short while for breaking and entering. And in 1961, he gets jailed for 18 months.
Ah, yeah. So in the meantime, he's doing odd jobs as well. So he's working in a shoe factory, he's doing construction. They have a second child. He feels very frustrated, though. He feels like he should be more than he is. Which is like most men, I guess. It feels like, I should have more, I should be, it felt like a lack of education was the thing that was holding him back.
Surely read then and don't break into people's houses.
Yeah, there is that. He was a massive liar as well. There was one bit where he was like, he actually used to look in the mirror and think to himself, who can I lie to today?
Fucking hell.
It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
I honestly don't...
we know some comedians like that, though.
Oh, God, what? Fuck me. Terrible. Terrible liars. Very, very poor liars. I think it's weird what things people choose to lie about as well. Like, I could never lie about saying something's happened in my career. Because you're pretending to yourself, aren't you?
Yes. Well, I think that's exactly it, isn't it?
Yeah.
That they have to pretend.
I just couldn't do it. To fib about something like that. Very strange. So, he gets 11 months in prison.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, as he's doing this, he
gets one of his nicknames, doesn't he?
He does. Measuring Man. Because what he's been doing, it's not funny.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
It's very weird because it's classed as a sexual crime.
And he has a budget.
Yeah, and he's got a budget.
Yeah.
So this is in the Cambridge area of Boston. If a man in his late 20s has been reported knocking on apartment doors. Now, if a young woman answers, he goes, hey, my name is Johnson and I work for a modelling agency. Your name is given to us and we think we would make a really good model.
You know, it's really weird though. I imagine it in this voice. Hello, my name is Johnson and I'm from such and such a modelling. You know that sort of Chicago...
Hey kid, I'm going to make you a star.
Well, just imagine it in that accent.
Weirdly, I mean, they talk about this later, that he is... his defence lawyer... is like, I've never felt so comfortable in someone's presence, because we'll talk about it later in the crimes, but he gets into people's apartments, even at people who never normally let people in. So he just had a way about him that was really non-threatening.
He was very small, actually, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was really petite, yeah. So he said, listen, it's not going to be nude pictures, it's just going to be swimwear and evening gowns, which you would be like, well, yes, I would love to be paid to wear an evening gown. So it's $40 an hour that you'll be paid, but I'm going to give you some money now, and maybe I can take some pictures of you and some pictures doing measurements on you. Mm-hmm. And he had like a sliding scale, didn't he?
Yeah. So he would pay them $10 for measurements, $15 for bra and pants pictures, and $25 for nude.
What do you reckon you would do if he knocked on?
Probably not let him in.
Really?
Nah, the fuck. Listen, if at my height, if a man knocked on my door and said that he was asking me to be a model, I'd be like, who is this fucking pervert? I'm 4'10". What am I going to be modelling?
Sofas. They put people your height into... I've talked about this before.
No, to make them look bigger.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, if you look at all sofa models are really short, and it's because that makes the sofas look massive.
I never knew
I'm
that.
sure I've told you this before.
No.
Mate, you'd be a sofa model.
I could do that.
You got DFS written all over you.
Oh my God. Why have I been missing out on this?
So he'd pay them, he'd take these pictures and he'd measure them, write it all down, and obviously they'd be very flattered. Mm-hmm. Like those girls who are like, oh, I'm going to do I've been scouted for modelling and I just have to pay for my pictures, it's 150 quid. And then he'd say, Mrs. Lewis from the agency is going to be in touch with you, and then he'd leave. Mrs. Lewis never got in touch, so eventually some of them were like, hey,
hang on a minute,
Mr. Policeman, a man came round and paid me $25 to get my chebs out and measure my inner thigh.
And because he's such a little shit as well, and he's a bragger and a liar and likes to talk about himself, when he gets arrested for breaking and entering, he'd always got a suspended sentence. So he'd been arrested quite a lot for doing this, but the sentence was always like, oh, suspended sentence. But he robbed a house, and then he got caught, and then he bragged to the police that it was the measuring man. So he unwittingly confessed to them, thinking the police were going to be like, hey, you, what a lad you are. He was charged with burglary, but the judge dropped the lewdness charges against him. Really? Yeah. So he was never convicted of that.
What he said to the judge is really interesting. He says... in the court case, he said, I'm not good looking, I'm not educated, but I was able to put something over on high-class people. They were all college kids, and I never had anything in my life, and I outsmarted them. So he saw the measuring man stuff as like, fuck you guys. Like, you're stupid enough that I can take pictures of you naked, and there's nothing you can do about it. Which is like a very weird... It's a
Yeah,
power thing, like all sex crimes. It's a power thing.
Very strange.
And then the judge was really sympathetic with him because he was the breadwinner for his family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd argue that him going out and spaffing up $10 on pictures of women is not the most efficient way to spend your finances. So they reduced his sentence, so it was like 18 months, but then also up for good behaviour as well.
So it was 11 months altogether, wasn't it?
That he served, yeah.
April 1962, he gets released, and 2 months later, he commits his first murder. Now, there's another thing that's happened at the same time, but also there's a bit of doubt if... There's so much doubt if he... Well, we'll get to it, won't we?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a multitasker because he's doing something else awful. The police are also investigating a series of rapes by... They're called the Green Man rapes, because the person that was committing them used to go in green work overalls, and it was Albert DeSalvo. So he would go into an apartment block, look up a woman's name on the listings, press the bell, and if she answered, he'd go up and he'd say, oh, there's a problem with the water in the building, I need to come in and have a look. She'd let him in. Why wouldn't you? Because you're going to assume he's in the building already, he's got work overalls on. And then he would tie them up and apologise while he was tying them up, rape them, and just like apologise and kiss them and stuff like that.
What?
Horrible. So they're investigating this.
I don't let any fucker in, you know.
Well,
Not even British Gas.
no, I mean, it's rare now that anyone will come to the house without prior warning, though, isn't it? Nobody really shows up, do they?
No.
It's usually, an appointment. Yeah, I wouldn't let. I'd be very sort of...
I hate it when you hear about those people who like turn up and scam old people.
Oh, no, don't. You know my feelings on that. Anything with old people.
Yeah.
Can't bear it.
They think that he wore green because that was usually the colour that, like, superintendents of buildings wore. You know, so, like, the janitors and things would usually have a uniform that looked a bit like that.
He, though, when all this is going on, he's not a suspect in the Green Man crimes because of the judge dropping the lewdness charges. If he hadn't, and he had been charged with that as well, he might...
Oh, yeah, he'd have been in the pool of people who they're looking for.
He might well have been a suspect in that.
So his first murder is Anna Slazers, who's a 55-year-old. She was Latvian-born seamstress. She only made like $60 a week. And she lived in this... It was 77 Gainsborough Street. And it was like this big brick townhouse that was basically full of students, retired people, people on small incomes. So it was like it was that basically not rich people.
Yeah.
She lived on the 3rd floor. Now she just had a dinner and she wanted a bath because she was off to do she was going to a memorial service at her church.
I bath before dinner.
What if I'm a messy eater, so I would definitely bath
I like to be clean when I eat.
Really? That sounds like such a fucking Marquis de Sade thing. I like to be clean before I eat. All right, creep.
I love to be clean when I don't like eating food if I feel scruffy.
What, you like? So you're like a Victorian, like to get dressed up for dinner?
I've got to be clean. Can't eat breakfast unless I've had a wash and...
Oh no, fuck that.
Yeah, I know, I can't.
I get food everywhere. The most I might do is wash my hands if I've been petting a dog, but that is like a real stretch.
No, I've got to be clean to eat. But I couldn't eat and then bathe.
Why?
Bathe. What the fuck am I talking? Because I feel like it'd be heavy in your stomach. And I like everything done before food.
No. There's too much to get through.
No, I like to... It's like tonight we're doing a show, dinner and a show. You know what really goes through me when I see this written on a menu? Pre-theatre supper.
Why?
Makes me feel physically sick.
Why?
I have no idea. Oh, pre-theatre menu.
That's just really handy. It just means here's a smaller menu that we can do quicker so you can get
to the
to
it makes me feel physically sick.
What? The privilege?
No, it's just a pre-theatre supper. I don't know, there's something about it that makes me go... Bleh. I hate it.
I can't get the measure of you sometimes.
Well, you can't. I don't even know the fuck I am anymore.
So she's going to go to a service at her church that's in Latvian. Mm-hmm. Now her son is meant to be collecting her. She lives in this... She'd fled Latvia, actually, with her son and her daughter, and they'd gone to the Back Bay area. So her son, Juris, is going to collect it. Now, he's fucking fuming about this and can't be arsed. And he's like, for fuck's sake, I don't want to pick my mum up. She's doing my head in. So he goes, it's June 14th, 1962. She's listening to Tristan und Isolde, which is an opera, and she's running a bath. And then
Tristan Isolde.
Tristan und Isolde?
Maybe that... It's I think it's Cornish, that. It's like...
What, you think a Latvian woman was listening to a Cornish opera?
Let me see. No, it's like
Think
a
it through.
Cornish... I'm going to Google this. It's like a Cornish...
Give me one more word.
It's,
Legend.
Legend. Is it?
How have you forgotten that word?
It's like a Celtic thing. So some of it, you know, one of those things that's Celtic, and it's like, oh yeah, Cornish stories of tragedy about the adulterous love between a Cornish knight Tristan and the Irish princess Isolde.
Oh, okay, so
There you
yeah,
go.
this must be the opera about their life.
There we are.
What a fucking great bit of trivia,
There we
mate.
go. That was not bad from me. But
No.
anything Cornish, you know where I am. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh look, bloody love Cornwall, me. Oh, pasties, thank you.
Do you think they should have independence?
Yeah, why not?
There we go. That's that done. Boxed off. So she gets a knock at the door as she's running the bath. Then an hour later, her son comes over, knocks on, and is like, for fuck's sakes, why
She's
she not
not
answering the
answering it,
door? Forces the door open, like, shoulder barges it. He's really annoyed at her for, like, taking his time. And then remembered, oh shit, she did say she was feeling really down and really depressed. And he for a moment, he thinks that she's killed herself. In fact, when he goes into the bathroom, he finds her naked.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, she's wearing a house coat and it's been, like, pulled open. And her legs have been, like, spread apart. So, like, you can see everything. And she'd been strangled with a cord from her robe. Now, he called the police and his sister, who lived in Maryland, and he said she's committed suicide. So he thought that his mum, this was a suicide.
Mind you, having said that, I suppose if you find your mum dead, you're not thinking straight anyway. It's
No, yeah,
like,
totally. So the detectives James Mellon and John Driscoll are first on the scene, and they're really struck by how it looks. That whoever's done this has made the body look like degraded and naked.
Mm-hmm.
They've bent her knees up so her like fanny's basically really exposed, and the apartment was made to look ransacked.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like her purse is open, everything's poured out of the inside. The drawers are poured open, the wastebasket's been tipped out, but there's gold and jewellery everywhere and they've not touched anything. So they can see it's staging. She's also been sexually assaulted with an unknown item. So there's a lot of this goes on, it's really rum. So the next one is the 28th of June, 1962, and that's Mary Mullen.
Just days later.
Yeah, she's 85 years old.
This is horrible. I mean, they're all horrible, but she, now they think what happened here, she wasn't strangled. They think she was so frightened by him that she had a heart attack and just dropped dead.
Fucking hell.
So they don't actually think that he did kill her in a way. Yeah, it's still murder, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, 85 years old, so that's the second one. And then, I mean, he is prolific. Because
So 2 days later?
Yeah, and this is insane because there's two on this very day.
Yeah.
So June the 30th, Nina Nichols, who was 68, Chester Stedman, who was her brother-in-law, he phoned her. Nina was a physiotherapist, and she didn't answer the phone. Now, he thinks this is strange, so he tells the building superintendent. And at 7:30 that evening, her body was discovered. Pretty much similar circumstances.
Strangled with her own stockings.
She'd been sexually assaulted with a wine bottle as well. I know I hate sort of great detail sometimes with murders because, I don't know, when someone's been murdered really, and it's so degrading and horrible, and like something like that, you're just like, oh fuck, that's...
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just something about it that I just think...
It's horrible, isn't it? Because when you read something like that, you're going, oh god, I hope she was dead when he did that.
Yeah, that kind of thing. You just think, it's just horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, and this must have been hours after this.
No, it was before. So they estimate her time of death at 5 p.m. And then the same day, they found Helen Blake, who is 65, and they estimated her death was at 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. So, only like 7 hours between them.
So she was 65. Her neighbour had heard furniture being moved in her flat, and they were like, oh, she's just doing some cleaning. Helen was a nurse as well. She'd been... There's a lot of sort of medical workers in this, isn't there?
Yeah.
She'd been strangled. Now, the press have got hold of this now, and there's a hunt for a crazed triple killer.
He sexually assaulted her as well because her anus and her vagina was lacerated, and she was face down on the bed, so that's what you could see.
It's so brutal, isn't it?
It's fucking horrible. So The next one takes place on the 19th of August, so only a couple of weeks later, basically 3 weeks later. She's found a few days later. This is Ida Erger, who's a 75-year-old.
Now, her family were worried because she wasn't answering the phone. So her cousin went round to the flat, and then he finds her in the flat.
Awful. So she lived at 7 Grove Avenue in the West End. She had like a pillowcase that was used to strangle her this time instead of stockings, and he had posed her with like her like again like everything on display. So they'd done it so as soon as you walk through the door, that was the first thing you would see, which is like just. It's fucking bad enough that you are sexually assaulting these women, that you're abusing them, that you're murdering them, and then the indignity of that afterwards, and that there's going to be someone who loves them finding them.
Yeah, the whole thing's horrible, isn't it? Now, at the time, so these are all being reported, everyone's shitting it in Boston, especially women. The sort of sales of locks went up. There was and sort of safety. What kind of things would you have? I mean, I suppose guns went up.
Well, the police commissioner, Edmund McNamara...
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Edmund McNamara.
Warned women, he said, right, lock your doors, don't answer the door to strangers, be really wary of anyone who wants to come in your house.
It's kind of advice for life, that.
Yeah,
cancelled... when there's a nutter on the loose.
Cancelled or leave as well for the police officers. So it was like... Obviously, there's a lot of dead women by now, but at least they did step up and try and do something. In fact, I read a pretty disgusting thing on the BBC when I was researching about this, and it said the population of Boston was shocked by these murders because they weren't killing prostitutes and vagrants. They were killing respectable middle-aged women. It's like, you fucking pieces of shit. You can be both things, you fucking arseholes.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, we're saying to women, lock your doors, cancel all the leave, and then put these 50 of his best officers together and said, okay, we're going to do a task force. And then the next murder was Jane Sullivan, who's a 65-year-old.
This is the 21st of August as well, days later, but this is previous to Ida as well. She was 67 years old. Now, it was August 21st, 1962. She was a nurse as well. She was found in a bathtub. She was dead, but she'd been dead a week, they think.
Ugh. So they think she was sexually assaulted, but she was too badly decomposed. And she was sort of left with her head under the faucet of the taps and her feet pointing up. And she lived in Dorchester in this area.
The psychiatrist at the time said, what we're looking for here, this murderer, is he's small physically, and he's got an inferiority complex about that. And he's probably suffering from schizophrenia. He got the small bit right, didn't he?
Yeah.
Absolutely, well done.
It's the ballpark.
Yeah.
Now, next is a bit of a departure. So it's Sophie Clark, who lived, again, in Back Bay. She lived at 315 Huntington Avenue. Now...
This is December the 5th, 1962.
Yeah, so she's a young black woman. Isn't she only, 23?
She's 20 years old?
Yeah, 20. Now, she was really, she was pretty restrictive about anyone coming in her house anyway. And then with all this happening, she was like, no one could believe it happened to her because they were like, she would never let anyone in. We don't know how this has happened.
It might have been because he was good at breaking and entering. That might have been a... But
there's never any sign of breaking and entry at any of the crime scenes. So, yeah, they were just like, no one could believe that it happened to her. So she'd been strangled again with her tights, and she'd been in the middle of writing a letter to her boyfriend, and it had just stopped. And that's obviously when the door had been knocked on.
She was a hospital technician as well. Her roommate came home and found her dead. Now, this is the first time they managed to get evidence. So there's semen at the crime scene. And that is used a bit later on. Much later on, in fact. Well,
they questioned the neighbours, and Mrs. Marcella Lulka lived in the same building, and she said a man came at about 2:20 and knocked on the door, and he said, "Oh, listen, the superintendent from the building has sent me in here to paint your apartment, and also I've been told to fix your bathroom." And and then he said at the door, he said, "You're really beautiful. Have you thought about modelling?"
Oh, God.
Right? And then she goes, shh, like that. And he starts to get really angry with her. And he's like, why are you shushing me? Why are you shushing me? She goes, because my husband's asleep in the next room. And then he just fucks off immediately, apparently. But so if he's knocking on people's doors and going, oh, the janitor told me to come up and I've got to paint your room and is there something in the bathroom? That's amazing, isn't it? Because you could knock on nearly every apartment and they'd be like, are you going to paint it? Oh yeah, there is something wrong in the fucking bathroom.
Yeah.
Especially if he's picking these like low income areas like he did with the first murder. So he left really quickly. And this is at 2:20 he knocked on that door. At 2:30 Sophie was killed. So she must have been the next door that he knocked on.
10 minutes later.
Yeah. So she said of this guy, okay, he was like between 25 and 30, he had honey-coloured hair and he was wearing green. So it's...
Honey-coloured?
Honey-coloured, yeah. Interesting detail, isn't it?
Honey-coloured hair. The next one, again, a matter of days later, Patricia Bissett. She was 23. This is New Year's Eve, 1962.
She worked as a secretary.
It was very, very cold, apparently. 4 degrees below zero. I don't know why I'm popping a bit of weather reporting in there.
I love it. Love it, mate. Bit of texture.
Nice to know, innit? She was a receptionist, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she had just been saying to her friend, "Oh, I'm not afraid of the Boston Strangler." Now,
I hate it when you hear stuff like that.
I know, it's horrible. So she is murdered in her own flat again. They found out she was 1 month pregnant as well. When she was murdered. She probably didn't even know that.
No, it's a sea monkey then, isn't it?
Yeah.
She well they missed her at work. They were like, it's weird that she's not come in, so they went to the flat.
It used to be the opposite when I was working.
Ah!
Like, wow, she's here.
So they went to the flat, knocked on, no answer. So he goes, her boss goes to the superintendent and was like, can you get the keys and let's just check on her, she doesn't turn up to work. So they go in the room and it just looks like she's napping in bed. So she's been like dressed into bed. Mm-hmm. And then when they pull the covers back, she's been strangled with stockings and they think she'd been sexually assaulted as well.
Then again, there's a bit of a break then, as far as we know.
Yeah, for the spring.
Mary Brown, this is March 6, 1963. She's 69 years old. This is where she's stabbed as well as strangled. So he's sort of he's mixing it up a bit.
Or is it the same person?
I don't know what I think about this, but we'll get to this in a bit later on.
This is hard, isn't it? Because it's like, is it the same person or is this escalation?
He uses this murder, though, when he's being questioned by the police. He uses this to persuade the police that he's guilty because he describes her kitchen and things that he saw in there. And he says, as the policeman says, oh, the sheet you put over her was very bloody, wasn't it? He goes, oh my God, what? Of course it was. And he's really sort of bragging about it. And yeah, he's
a dickhead.
I don't know what I believe in this, though. I don't know. There's so much, there's a lot around it, but obviously we'll get to that in a bit, won't we?
Anything where there's I got this info from listening to another podcast, but there's a jailhouse snitch in this, and that's where loads of false imprisonments come from. When someone indoors is like, "Oh yeah, they confessed it all to me. Can I get less on my sentence?" So a few months pass. It's now May 8th, 1963.
Yep.
Beverly, how do you pronounce that surname? Salmons, yeah. She's only 23 years old, so his victims are getting younger as well. Now she's really sort of studious. Mm-hmm. She missed choir practice.
She was a musical therapist as well.
Yeah. They're all really successful.
Yeah.
They've all got great jobs, haven't they? She missed her choir practice, so they were like, oh, okay, let's go and check on her. Now, a neighbour or like a friend had a key to her apartment. So goes over, knocks on, no answer, lets themselves in and finds her strangled and stabbed. And the way she was stabbed is, there was loads of, was it like 27 wounds?
Yeah.
And they were in a bullseye over her breast. So it was all concentrated in the same area. Now, he had tried to strangle her, but she was training to be an opera singer, and they think her throat muscles were so strong that he couldn't do it. That she had such like strength of breath and could hold her like breath from holding a note for so long that they actually couldn't strangle her, which is why he stabbed her.
That's incredible, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Just another thing that women have got to learn how to do to keep themselves safe. Or be opera singers, so you can't be throttled as much.
Yeah, she so we're on number 11 now. Evelyn Corbin, 58 years old. This was the 8th of September 1963. She just had breakfast with her neighbour, who was called Flora Manchester. Why is that not my stage name? They were planning to meet later on as well. They were going to mass, and then Flora was going to meet up with Evelyn later on after mass. I mean, I'd meet anyone after mass. I'm not going.
I loved mass when I went.
I don't know.
Been once. I've told you about this, haven't I?
Maybe I'd find it quicker now. I just remember it just dragging.
Oh, it is long.
It's an hour.
Do you know what they... What?
Mass is an hour.
It's not.
Catholic Mass.
It's 3 if it's a fucking day.
No, ours were...
I think they make it like a speed awareness course where it's just too long for you to tolerate.
100% ours were an hour.
Really?
Yeah. It might be...
Maybe I did hate it then.
Do you know what? You know the biggest surprise in my life? Probably not, actually. I'm over-exaggerating. Right, so funerals. I genuinely thought a funeral would last about 5 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
It feels like it should be...
But it's because it's like... what they called crematoriums are like fucking sausage factories. So you literally have a window of half an hour.
It's like, right, come on.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they were dead good. Wasn't it sad when their husband died?
They had a love of music.
Yeah, here's Calon Lamb, and now let's watch them burn. Like,
I was so shocked when I first went to a funeral. I was like, is that it? Like, you live all these years and this is it?
Well, that's why everyone really leans into the wake, isn't it? Because that's the actual bit where you sit around telling stories and getting pissed.
I think I've said this before. I have got a real issue with wakes.
Yeah, you have said it before, and I massively disagree.
I hate them. I find them slightly disrespectful. Really funny like that. I don't know what it is.
I think it's that if there's a karaoke machine there, it's disrespectful.
I felt a bit like when my grandparents died, all these people turning up and being at the house, and I was sitting there thinking, you fuckers haven't spoken to this person in 20 years, and yet here you are eating our sandwiches. I don't know, I find it very...
Yeah, definitely, but there's a lot of that kind of like flies around shit behaviour when people die anyway. That's really distasteful.
Oh, it's horrible. I wonder...
Scum. Subhuman scum.
I wonder what my funeral will be like. Poorly attended, probably.
I'll be there.
Is it going to be soon? It feels like...
Oh, what, you reckon we're going to fall out when somebody die?
No, I was going to say it sounds like you got it planned and it's like next week and I don't know.
I'll be there, I've got it penciled in. We're going to let you have one good week like a donkey at the Brook House and then put you down.
Do you know, I would welcome that.
Don't be fucking daft.
I would welcome it.
Don't be daft.
No, actually, I'd like to go before I'm 80.
It's all about quality of life. If I have a shit quality of life by 40, fucking dignitas my ass. And plant the trees, obviously, because we're flying. But if I'm like, if I'm 90 and I'm, still got friends in a social circle and I'm stimulated,
yeah, I suppose you're right.
I'll keep creaking on.
Depends how active and, out and about you are. Like my gran was really active. She went to a sewing class every Thursday for 20 odd years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
Do you reckon there's people who are like 96? Oh, this is probably disrespectful, I'm not going to say it.
No, go on. You started.
And they haven't fucked in like 30 years.
Yeah, but I think you probably are fine about it.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon you're like, But then again, older people still bang.
Do they?
Yeah, of course they do. You just got to be a bit more careful because of your hips and shit, aren't you?
I don't know, mate. I think...
Do you think you'd be wanking someone off when you're 90?
God, well, not with arthritis, no. Be lucky if I can play the piano.
Also, do you find... Well, you must do. Do you wonder if you find people at the same age of... Like, it's when you get to, say, 80-odd, do you fancy...
No.
Other 80-odd-year-olds? You must do.
No. I think that, that's why all the women are all like, oh, he's gorgeous. And they're always, like, cooing over, guys who are, like, 30 or whatever.
Darren Day.
Yeah. Daniel O'Donnell.
Daniel O'Donnell. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe you'd meet, so, because you hear about those old couples who meet in an old people's home and they're both widows, and then they suddenly, like, he'll be like, oh, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And you're like, really? All right.
What about your what about your dead wife, mate?
Yeah.
Who you loved? I would, if I got married and I died first, I would fucking hate my husband to meet someone else.
Really? You wouldn't want them to be happy?
No. I'm dead. I don't want. I would... Oh, I'd be angry.
I wouldn't... I'd feel a bit weird if they moved on soon, but ultimately you just want them to be happy, don't you?
Nope.
Well,
I want to be alive. And I want to be happy. I don't know, I'd find it very difficult.
Would you then, if you were widowed, would you move on?
Absolutely.
Fuck me! What is this unbelievable double standard?
And if they were, ill and I was looking after them, I'd be putting the feelers out already. I'd be like, well, he's there.
Jesus Christ, that's dark.
No, I wouldn't.
You would. You'd be on plenty of fish.
Not long to go. Caring for you.
I can imagine you swiping right while you're popping a drip in their arm. You absolute fucking scumbag.
I wouldn't do that. Of course I wouldn't do that. I would not do it. Although, I think it's weird now, like, I always felt like, you know, you split up with somebody and you always think, oh, if they get a new girlfriend, I'm going to murder her. And you think, oh, I'm going to hate her. And then when it happens, you're just like, oh, I don't give a shit.
I never think that.
I'm very judgy.
Yeah, you are.
If I see somebody you go out with a new girlfriend and I look at a picture and I think, if I found out someone was funnier than me, I'd be absolutely livid. I'd be so furious.
You better hope I don't go with any of your exes, mate.
Here she is. The look on your face.
I know.
Like,
as soon as you said it, I was like, I can't wait to fucking say this.
That'd be oh God. I genuinely though, if I thought, oh, she looks funny to me. Also, one of my exes is with someone else now. Fine, don't give a shit. She's a bit live, laugh, love. But she has this thing where she like, I mean, not that I've been snooping. She goes on about Liam Gallagher. I'm like, fuck off. Fuck off. One.
She's not got an archive, mate. She's got nothing
she's not,
on
but
you.
it's like, but what I love is the fact that, like, I don't care, but that's the thing that has got me. I'm more annoyed that she thinks she likes Liam Gallagher more than me.
She doesn't think that. She doesn't even think about you.
Oh, of course she's had a snoop.
No.
Of course she's had a snoop.
No way.
Absolutely.
She won't even know who you are.
Oh, as if I'm forgettable? Like,
No.
He doesn't cry about me every night?
Yeah, but he might not have let on, like, oh, by the way, this comedian is my ex-girlfriend.
Well, the weird thing is there's a tenuous link, which I'll tell you about in a bit.
Okay, well, maybe then she has had a snoop.
Oh, of course she's had a snoop. Oh, of course. I'll have come up in... Why wouldn't I come up in conversation?
Because people don't talk about their exes.
Do you know what I am? I'm a ghost in that relationship. Hanging over...
No, you're not. Don't be awful.
Always
You're being awful. You're being appalling now.
Always there. What a cunt.
She is the silent guest at every dinner table. What's that thing that's really threatening about Christ that people have on the wall?
Oh, yeah,
He's the silent listener in every conversation,
Yeah.
the guest at every dinner table.
The unseen guest at every meal.
And it's like, ugh, it sounds fucking weird.
The unwelcome third party in any sexual occasion. So, I don't even know how to we're onto this.
I've got a little bit here about stop tapping away at your Fitbit like a moron.
I don't think they're legit, you know.
No, they've been proven not to be.
I don't trust them. I've got no respect for them. I think
Then
they're
why are you
crap.
wearing it?
It was a present from someone who evidently thought that I needed to get healthy.
Now then, this is how you know an investigation is in dire straits, because they call in a psychic.
Oh, God.
Spoiler alert, it won't be the only one they call in. So this is Paul Gordon, who is a psychic with ESP qualities.
Extra sensory perception, is that?
I believe so, yes. So they say...
Ethereal selling point.
Very nice. They say to him, listen, what should we be looking for? And he says, okay, you're looking for someone with blonde hair, a curl that falls down repeatedly on their face that they need to brush back. Weirdly specific about that. They have a right tooth on the right hand side of their mouth, and the upper set they have a tooth missing. Oh. They said he's going to come from Maine or Vermont. He's going to have in his past that he used to beat his mum up, and he's searching for his mum. That's what all these murders are about. It's him just wandering around searching for his mum.
I mean, it weaves a good story.
Yeah, and they were like, he'll never find his mum because he's dead, and that's what he's searching for. So the psychic actually picked a guy called Arnold Wallace, who was a 26-year-old mental patient, who had ground privileges, which means he would have been able to leave the facility. And then that was who we got for, I think, one of the first murders. And they said, okay, what about Sophie Clark? Who killed her? And then he described in loads of detail. He said, okay, well, it's a black guy. He's really husky. And then he described one of her ex-partners called Lewis Barnett, who was actually a suspect. So they were like, hold on, the psychic says it's true.
Causing a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and then they said whoever it is he's going to confess. And then they looked into Lewis Barnett's background, and it turned out he'd been hospitalised, but he'd escaped from hospital 6 times, and a lot of these times were when the murders took place. So they were like, hold on a minute. And then they looked up and found that Paul Gordon, the psychic, had also been hospitalised, so he would have known when this guy left and is basically trying to casually frame him. And they spoke to Arnold, Arnold Wallace. They gave him, he only had an IQ of between 60 and 70, which we know is far below average. So they gave him a lie detector test, which came back as inconclusive, but it probably did, not because he was guilty, but because he had a low IQ and didn't really understand the ramifications of what he was doing. So basically, a psychic led them no closer to the murder.
It is strange when they did. I mean, there must be some evidence of psychics actually help it.
Name one.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. We don't know about it, do we? We don't.
If there was one that worked, we'd all fucking know about it.
It'd just be the go-to person.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a documentary on YouTube, and it is about a guy who gave up being a policeman to become a police psychic, and it is the most unintentionally funny thing.
Really? What's it called?
I can't remember. I'll find the link in a bit. But it's one of. I mean, I love those documentaries where you can just tell it's early 2000s.
Yeah.
And
where true crime is like when they're like, no one will watch this, so we don't worry about getting sued for it.
I was watching. I mean, I'm obsessed with Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack, which is a 90s TV show, an American show about unsolved mysteries. And I was watching one the other day, where he's like, women going missing and being found dead in the Green River. We speak to this inmate who says he knows who's doing the murders. Shows this picture of this guy. It's not Gary Ridgway.
So they did a whole programme.
Yeah, and I meant to watch it and I just turned it off. I was like, oh. So they did an entire show. And I guess it's somebody who's either... Yeah, I'd have to find out. Because this guy was like, yeah, it's definitely him. And I'm like, that's not him. With hindsight. Oh, the pre-9/11 world. That's what I was thinking when I watched the film. I'm like, ooh, 9/11 hasn't happened yet. So, now, Flora.
Yes,
Flora Manchester. She finds Evelyn. She goes to the flat to find her so they can go and continue their day. And she's not answering, so she goes in, she finds her, she's been murdered. After that, there's Joan Graff, who was 23 years old. This is November the 23rd, 1963. She was an artist and she was a Sunday school teacher, and all the neighbours said she was a very, very quiet woman, sort of kept herself to herself, that kind of thing. And this is the day after Kennedy was assassinated, actually.
Yeah.
23rd November 1963.
She was strangled as well, and there were teeth marks on her breast,
Ugh.
and her vagina was quite bloody and lacerated, so she was sexually assaulted as well. So at 3:25, someone heard footsteps going to Joan's door, heard the door open and shut, and went, oh, okay, well, they must have been looking for her and gone in the flat. So they heard that happen. 10 minutes later, someone calls her and there's no answer, so she must have died around that time. Now, the next morning, the neighbour sees, weirdly, the neighbour in that block sees a paper, it's a woman living on her own again, sliding under her door and, like, moving from side to side, and then hears footsteps walking away really quickly. It's just weird, because what also happened is he knocked on at the upstairs door and said, because her name is Joanne, right, Graff, and said, is Joan Graff here? And they went, oh, no, just it's Joanne, she lives in the flat below. So, like, went, oh, the lady who wanted murders in the flat below. And that's when they heard the someone like, oh, they found the right person. It must have been who he was looking for. But I think he was knocking around that flat building, trying to find people for a while. Because they also said that there'd been complaints about a man wandering around the building. They could hear footsteps. It's really creepy, isn't it?
Gross, isn't it? The next one, 4th of January 1964, this is the last one. Mary Sullivan, 19 years old. Now, she is, she's at home, obviously. He manages to get into the building. Now, her roommates come home. They go into her room. She's in bed. They think she's asleep. They make dinner. They go in to wake her up to say, oh, your dinner's ready. And they discover that she's dead.
And she'd been posed as well. So there was like a Happy New Year's card left at her feet and these 2 pink scarves. She'd been strangled. And this is so fucking... She had a thick substance they think it was semen dripping from her mouth, and she'd been sexually assaulted with a broomstick. Had been inside her like 3.5 inches. It's so fucking rough.
It's gross, isn't it?
And what they
But
couldn't...
all of me makes me think, how did they not notice she'd been murdered?
What do you mean?
How did they not notice that she was not dead? With all this stuff going on, did they just pop their head in and be like, oh, she must have been covered up, it must have been... I don't know, it just seems a really weird thing to think that someone's asleep when they've been brutally murdered.
Yeah.
I'm not laughing at it, I just find it
Yeah, it's a weird thing to be like, oh, pardon me, I'll come back
Sorry.
later. Yeah. What the police couldn't get their head around is that these women were still letting people in voluntarily. There was no sign of, like, very few of them there was struggle. I think there was only 2 victims where they had struggled. So they set up a special division called the Strangler Bureau, bit on the nose, and they put a $10,000 reward up. Now, this was assisted by Attorney General John S. Bottomley. Now, what was said of him is, I've never heard his name without the word asshole as a prefix or suffix. It's so attached, I thought it was part of his name. So apparently he was fucking massively incompetent.
I love that.
And had loads of, like, shit ideas. Now, they said this task force looked at all the things. They went, right, okay, this guy's 30, probably a little bit older, but he should look younger. No older than 30. Will be neat. He'll be punctual. He works with his hands, or it's a hobby involving handiwork anyway. They think he'd be single, separated, or divorced. And he doesn't seem mad or crazy. You would never know. And he's got no friends of either sex. That's what their description was.
You got no mates.
Bully no mates, but you are neat and punctual, so... Now, they were like, oh, God, this is not going well. So they're like, better bring in another psychic, actually. So they bring in a Dutch psychic.
Why are they behaving like a divorced, middle-aged woman by calling in a psychic every 5 minutes?
I don't know, mate.
When will I find love? Imagine that if you're a psychic, like, I've got no clue about who's committing these murders, but she'll be around soon. You're going to meet her.
Yeah, lucky number 7. So his name is Peter Harkos, and he ended up... so what happened with him is they got this... He was, like, renowned Dutch psychic in. Fast forward a few months after this, he gets prosecuted for impersonating an FBI agent.
Brilliant.
But he identified a man who said, all right, it's this person who did it. But that guy was then committed to an institution, and these attacks had kept happening. So they were like, it's not him, that's absolute bullshit. So that's just another bit of psychics going wrong.
Well, during this time, so he lies dormant for quite a long time, but he's continuing with his sideline in the horrific rapes that he's committing. So October 27, 1964, so this is a good few months after he's murdered Mary Sullivan. He rapes a woman. Now, he posed as a detective to get into a flat. He tied her up, apologised to her, raped her, and then she goes to the police.
Oh, this is the one where she wakes up and there's a knife to her throat, which is genuinely a reoccurring nightmare I have, where I wake up and it's like, oh, I'm fucked. And she did a sketch of him because she got a really good look at his face. And they're like, that guy looks like that measuring man that we prosecuted a few years ago. So they arrest him.
And they published a photo. Was it the drawing? And loads of women were like, that's Albert DeSalvo. Or like, I recognise that man. Yeah. This is what he did to me.
So they arrest him and then they interview him with one of those one-way mirrors, which I think are fucking cool. But also creepy.
Yeah, I think they're creepy. Yeah, I don't
just
like...
every cop drama you see one of those and it's like... Bleh.
What I find very embarrassing about them is several times in my life I've sort of stopped to do my hair and stuff and I'm like, fuck, it's one of those mirrors, isn't it? You must just be constantly sitting behind them watching people.
Don't you remember I used one in America? There's one in the fucking... What's it called? The room we're in for 4 hours.
Oh, God.
Immigration room. And I went over to it, so it's in a corner on its own, and I start, like, sorting my tits out.
Preening.
Yeah, so I basically started, like, pushing my tits back into my bra, and, like, I was wearing, like, a leotard with leggings, so, like, sorting out my fanny and stuff in the corner, and then so I just heard someone say, ma'am, this is a one-way mirror, and I was like, oh, no. There's me, like, picking out my gusset in front of some stranger. I'm amazed they let us in the country. They probably thought I was trying to bribe them.
Well, I was going to say, I'm surprised we weren't, like, thrown in a cell and deported immediately after that.
So
woman has confidence.
So in this one-way mirror, the victim from October 27th, what was her name? Sorry.
October 20... We haven't got her name, the woman.
It's weird that maybe they kept her identity out. She stood the other side of the mirror and was like, that's absolutely him. So he's arrested and he was really embarrassed.
On this same day, we should say as well, there was an incident where earlier this same day that he attacked this woman who did the really good drawing, he posed as a motorist with car trouble, and he tried to get into a house. Now, in this house was Richard Sproles, who was a future police chief. Like Tony Blair was future war criminal. This Richard was very suspicious of him, and the account says he ultimately fired a gun at him. It's like, how did
end of the day, when all's said and done, he fires a gun.
Like, what went on to get to that point?
You can't leave out the middle bit. That's the important bit.
But also, I always feel like I think he fired at at his feet or something. That's how it feels like, a bit like a cartoon kind of thing. But do continue.
So he's like, are you going to arrest me? And then he said, I'm just going to be very embarrassed if my wife sees me in handcuffs.
Oh. Mate, you've been wanking and wiping your dick on the towels.
Yeah, least of her worries.
I don't think handcuffs.
She'd be like, brilliant, get those fucking paws away from this house. The whole room fucking stinks. And she says, as he's being arrested, she says, tell them the truth. Make sure whatever you do, just tell them the truth.
Do you think she knew?
No, I think that she was like, you can't get in trouble if you tell the truth.
Yeah.
I think it was that. And then in March of 1965, she gets a call from J. Bailey, which is his attorney, and he says, change your name and move, and you've got 24 hours to do it. And she's like, what? And he's like, it's about to blow up. And then he's like, he's confessed to being the Boston Strangler. So that's the first stage of it. Now, we can't get it into too much because it'll be part 2 of it, but that's as far as we get is he gives the confession and then it all goes mad, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's there's a lot going on, and I'm not sure how much of it I believe and how much I think he is.
Save it for the next episode, mate.
Right.
Right, we'll see you. We'll try and put them both out together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? See you soon.
Bye.